Hello guys, and today we'll take a look at the Felicia, which will be the next premium tank available in the game. So now Wargaming released the preview of the next chapter in the Battle Pass, and from the look of this turret, we can see that this will be the Felicia. If you don't know, the Felicia is tier 9 Italian medium tank with 480 alpha damage. So definitely a big gun with big alpha damage. It will slap, although the rest of the tank doesn't look nice. Now I will compare it to the 4 other medium tanks at the tier 9, and as we can see here, the DPM is the worst here. So 2000, it doesn't really matter, we deal 480 alpha damage, so of course the DPM cannot be as good as other tanks. The speed of the shells is also pretty bad, but the penetration is okay with 256 millimeters penetration on the standard shells and 310 millimeters on the heat shells. The HE shells have only 63 millimeters of penetration, so they won't be very useful. There is a problem with this tank, which is of course the gun handling. First bad thing is the aiming time of 2.6 seconds. Only T54D has such a bad aiming time, and this will be even worse with the dispersion of 0.4, and that's the worst dispersion by far in this comparison. As we can see here, all of those medium tanks have 30% better dispersion, so this tank will not be able to snipe really effectively. Also, the shots are pretty slow. And another bad thing is the moving dispersion. When you are driving and turning the tank, your reticle will be even bigger than while standing, and it will be by a huge margin. As we can see here, other tanks have much better moving dispersion, some even twice as good. The only good thing about the gun handling is the turret traverse. When we will be turning the turret, the dispersion will be only a bit worse by zero point zero 0.04. Basically, what this means, when you are turning the turret, your dispersion will be 0.44, and it's okay for a medium tank. So it will be the best thing about the gun handling. Now the gun depression and elevation. So we have 20 degrees of elevation and technically 8 degrees of gun depression, but unfortunately, as you can see here, it's a trick because we get only 8 degrees when we are facing forward. So if you will angle even a little bit, so 30 degrees, you don't have 8 degrees of gun depression, you have only 7. And when you will be turning the turret, you will have even less. So you can have even 3 degrees of gun depression where you are aiming behind. So definitely you will have to look at this. This makes the 8 degrees of gun depression much worse. So for the speed, technically it isn't that bad because we should be going 45 kilometers an hour without any boost. But of course, not the case with the 13.5 power to weight ratio. As we can see here, only the T54D has worse power to weight ratio, but he has at least a good terrain resistance, so this tank will have even less power to weight ratio on terrain, and this will slow this tank even more. At least the tank traverse is okay, so you will turn fast. And another big thing about this tank, so the armor. It should be also one of the best, but it really isn't the case. And that's because of the hull armor. The hull armor is basically unusable. Although the cheeks here can sometimes bounce some shells that will not hit you, most of the shells will go into the front of yours and everything will pen you. As we can see here, top plate has only 200 millimeters of effective armor, and that basically means that anything can pen you on this tier. And the case with the lower plate is even worse because we have 130 millimeters of armor. So even some tanks with the HEs will be able to pen you. Fortunately, the turret is much better armored. We have 330 millimeters on the side cheeks, and on the front we have little over 310 millimeters. When we will use the gun depression, it will be even better. So the turret, as we can see, even though it has some weaknesses, as we can see under the turret, the shells will be able to pen, and the cupola is quite big. Fortunately, the turret is also big, so we will be able to bounce some shells, but the turret should be able to withstand some pressure. Angling isn't really useful for this tank because of those cheeks here. And also the side armor is only 50 millimeters up here. Any tank will be able to pen you easily with the hit shells. So the armor is basically okay, even though the whole armor is completely dog shit. The turret armor should be able to bounce quite many shells. The health only 1600, also quite bad for a medium tank on the tier 9, especially the tank which should be fighting up close. And the camo doesn't really interest us, although only 380 meters of view range will set us back a bit. So this is basically the tank from the start. From the stats, we can tell that it will be basically a one-trick pony. Only the alpha damage looks good. Everything else, except maybe the turret armor, looks underwhelming. Fortunately, this tank will be from the battle pass, so we will be able to get it quite easily if you grind the game. So that's the most that we can get from the stats alone. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you will grind this tank. What do you think about it? And see you next time.